Hello everyone, welcome to module 2 of our discussion on CMOS inverter from VLSI design perspective. In our previous module, we discussed the logical behavior of a CMOS inverter using a switch model, and then we discussed the static mode characteristics of inverter along with derivation of its voltage transfer curve and main regions of operation. Moreover, we also discussed the concept of switching threshold, noise margin and voltage gain of CMOS inverter. In this module, we will discuss the dynamic behavior of CMOS inverter, in particular its propagation delay. The propagation delay is an important parameter of any digital circuit because it gives us an information about the maximum operating clock frequency of circuit. The maximum frequency of a circuit is reciprocal of its propagation delay. Tp is the propagation delay. So we will first define the propagation delay of an inverter, and then with the help of a switch model we shall see that the propagation delay of an inverter is a function of two quantities. Number one, the equivalent resistance of an inverter, and the total load capacitance. In order to obtain the load capacitance of inverter, we shall first look at the capacitance model of basic MOS transistor, and then we will see that how this information can be used to obtain the total load capacitance of inverter. Moreover, to understand the concepts better, some examples shall be discussed using practical technology parameters. So let's start. The propagation delay is defined as a time between a certain change at the input of a logic gate and its effect to be visible at the output. Or in simple words, it is the time required for the inputs to be propagated to output. Every logical circuit required a certain time between applying the inputs and obtaining the corresponding output, and this time is called as propagation delay. To understand this, let us consider the input and output waveforms of an inverter. As you can see that when input changes from low to high, the output changes from high to low after a certain time. The same thing happens when the input changes from high to low. The output changes from low to high after a certain time period. So there is always a certain time delay between the input transition and its corresponding output transition, and this delay is called as propagation delay. Typically, the propagation delay is measured as a time difference between the midpoints, that is 50% of respective input output transition. So depending upon the transition, there are two kinds of delays. Number one is the TPHL, which is the propagation delay for high to low output transition, and TPLH is the propagation delay for low to high output transition. TPHL is defined as the time difference between midpoint of low to high input transition to the midpoint of its corresponding high to low output transition. Similarly, TPLH is defined as the time difference between the midpoint of high to low input transition to the midpoint of its corresponding low to high output transition. And for a generic logic gate, TPHL is the time difference between the maximum value of output and its 50% value. For example, let's the maximum value of output is VDD. So the time between VDD and VDD by 2 during high to low transition is called as TPHL. Similarly, the time between 0 and VDD by 2 during low to high output transition is called as TPLH. Two more parameters which characterize any digital waveform are the rise time and fall time, where rise time is defined as the time between 10% and 90% of maximum output value during low to high transition, whereas the fall time is defined as the time between 90% and 10% of maximum output value during high to low transition. So this was the basic definition of propagation delay. Now, in order to evaluate the high to low and low to high propagation delays of inverter, let us again refer to its switch model. As you can see that each transistor is replaced by a switch along with its equivalent resistance. When the input is low, the PMOS transistor conducts, whereas the NMOS transistor is open. Load capacitance at the output is charged to VDD by the equivalent resistance of PMOS. Similarly, when the input is logic high, the PMOS transistor is switched off, whereas the NMOS transistor is switched on. Therefore, the load capacitance at the output node is discharged to ground through the equivalent resistance of NMOS transistor. For both high to low and low to high transitions, the inverter can be modeled by a first order RC network, where C represents the total load capacitance and R represents the equivalent resistance of NMOS or PMOS depending upon the output transition, and voltage source represents a low to high or high to low step input. For the first order RC network, this is the standard equation of voltage across the capacitor as a function of time and RC constant tau. We are basically interested to obtain the time taken by the capacitor to charge from 0 volt to VDD by 2 during low to high transition, or to discharge from VDD to VDD by 2 during a high to low output transition. So we want to evaluate the time at which V out becomes equal to VDD by 2, and putting this value in this equation, we obtain the time equal to 0.69 times the tau, which is the RC constant. So in both cases, the time taken by the capacitor to discharge from VDD to VDD by 2 or to charge from 0 to VDD by 2 is equal to 0.69 times the RC constant tau. So propagation delay for high to low output transition is equal to 0.69 times the equivalent resistance of NMOS multiplied by the load capacitor. Similarly, the propagation delay for low to high output transition is equal to 0.69 times the product of equivalent resistance of PMOS and the load capacitance. The overall propagation delay of inverter is the average of its low to high and high to low propagation delays. The equivalent resistance of each transistor is approximated using simplified equations given over here, and these equations show that the equivalent resistance offered by each transistor is strongly dependent on its technology parameters, that is the gain factor, aspect ratio, drain saturation voltage and the threshold voltage, etc. Whereas the load capacitance CL is actually a sum of a number of parasitic capacitances of an inverter. So in order to see what are those capacitances in the inverter which contribute to CL, our first job is to understand the capacitances of a single MOS transistor. And for this purpose, let us discuss the dynamic behavior of a MOS transistor. This is the capacitance model of a MOS transistors, and it shows a number of intrinsic parasitic capacitances. CGS and CGD denote the gate to source and gate to drain capacitance. CSB and CDB denotes the source to body and drain to body capacitance, whereas CGB denotes the gate to body capacitance. These all capacitances constitute the intrinsic capacitance of a MOS transistor. Therefore, the dynamic response of the MOS transistor depends upon the time taken to discharge or charge its intrinsic capacitance as well as extra capacitance introduced by load and connecting wires. In fact, these capacitances are basically due to three further sources of capacitances, that are: number one, the structure capacitance, the channel capacitance and the junction or diffusion capacitance. So let's discuss each of them one by one. The first type is called the structure capacitance, and it is also known as overlap capacitance. As we know that in a MOS transistor we have a gate terminal, then we have an oxide layer over here. This oxide acts as a dielectric between the gate and the body substrate, and then we have two diffusion regions of N plus or P plus impurities depending upon the type of transistor. For example, for NMOS we have N plus diffusion regions over here, and these diffusion regions act as source or drain region. For NMOS the body is P plus. The oxide isolates gate from rest of the transistor. Cox is the oxide capacitance per unit area, and Cox is a fixed technology parameter which is represented as a ratio between oxide permittivity and its thickness. The units of Cox are femtofarad per micrometer square. Now ideally we would expect a scenario like this, where the source and drain diffusion regions and just at the corner of gate oxide. But practically some portion of source and drain diffuses below the gate oxide, and this is called as lateral diffusion, where xt denotes the length of this lateral diffusion. For all practical purposes, we assume that both source and drain diffused under the gate by a same length. Now due to this diffusion we have some capacitance. For example, let us consider the NMOS case. We have a gate terminal which is connected to a positive potential. So in metal gate there are a large number of free electrons over here. Then we have an oxide layer, and then we have a diffusion region over here, which again consists of large number of free electrons because it is N plus impurity. So we have charge carriers over here, an insulator, and again charge carrier. So this portion of the source and drain behaves like a capacitor, and the capacitance of this portion is known as overlap capacitance. So gate to source and gate to drain overlap capacitance is equal to oxide capacitance per unit area multiplied by the area of diffusion, which is equal to diffusion length times transistor width. In technology data sheets, a parameter is also given which is called overlap capacitance per unit length, where CO is equal to Cox times xt, and units of CO are Fermi-Farad per micrometer. The second type of capacitance is the gate to channel capacitance. This is most significant capacitance in MOS transistor. The total gate to channel capacitance is further made up of sum of three components. Number one, gate to source channel capacitance, gate to drain channel capacitance, and gate to body channel capacitance. And importantly, individual contributions of these capacitances depend upon the region of operation and applied terminal voltages of a MOS transistor. So let's see how it happens. In cutoff mode, we have no channel present between source and drain. Consider an NMOS transistor. We have a large number of free electrons in the metal gate. Then we have an oxide layer which acts as a dielectric, and then we have a depletion region over here because there is no channel present between source and drain. And then we have a body substrate which has a large number of free holes. So we have one type of carriers over here, and then we have this portion which acts as a dielectric oxide layer as well as the depletion region, and then we have other type of carriers present in the body. So the whole channel capacitance is only contributed by the gate to body channel capacitance. As there are no electrons contributed from source and drain, so gate to source and gate to drain channel capacitances are 0, and the total value of gate to body channel capacitance is equal to oxide capacitance per unit area multiplied by area of transistor. This is the maximum value of gate to channel capacitance. In triode mode, an inversion layer of electrons is formed between source and drain region. So the total gate channel capacitance is equally contributed by gate to source channel capacitance and gate to drain channel capacitance. The value of each of them is equal to Cox times W times L by 2. There is no gate to body channel capacitance. Why? Because we have a metal with free electrons over here, then we have a dielectric, then we have a conducting channel of free electrons over here, and then we have a body substrate which contains large number of free holes. So there is no direct capacitance between gate and body due to the presence of an intermediate channel of electrons. Similarly, in saturation mode, there is a pinch off near the drain region. As a result, gate to drain channel capacitance is 0. Moreover, because this channel is cancelling the effect of gate to body capacitance, therefore gate to body channel capacitance is also 0. The only contribution of capacitance is from the source. So gate to source channel capacitance has value equal to 2Cox times WL by 3. So the effect of gate to channel capacitance is summarized in this slide. In cutoff mode we have only gate to body channel capacitance whose value is Cox WL. This is the maximum value of gate to channel capacitance. In resistive region, the total gate to channel capacitance is equally contributed by source and drain, whereas in saturation region only gate to source channel capacitance is present. The total gate capacitance is equal to the sum of total gate to channel capacitance and the overlap capacitances of source and drain region. Since both overlap capacitances are equal, so we combine them by putting 2 over here. The third source of capacitance in MOS transistors is known as junction or diffusion capacitance, and this capacitance arises due to the presence of two p-n junctions in the transistor. One is located at the interface of source and body, and the other one is located at the interface of drain and body. So let's see how these junctions behave like capacitors. Referring to the NMOS transistors over here, we can see that the source and drain regions are N plus diffusion regions and contain a large number of free electrons, whereas the substrate is p-type, contains free holes. So there are two p-n junctions over here which behave like diodes. Now as we know, for NMOS the body terminal must be at the lowest potential. Moreover, a positive voltage is applied across the drain in order to make the current to flow through the channel, and the source is either grounded or connected to the body terminal. So for all practical purposes, source body and drain body p-n junctions must be reversed biased to ensure normal behavior of transistor. Now as we know from the basic diode theory that a p-n junction under reversed bias condition has a depletion region, and the width of this depletion region is directly proportional to the magnitude of reversed biased voltage. So we have two oppositely charged carriers separated by a depletion region which acts as a dielectric, and this situation behaves like a capacitor whose capacitance is called as diffusion or junction capacitance. Now if we look at the NMOS transistor in 3D, we see that source and drain diffusion region are made in the form of a cubical structure whose length is equal to Ls and width is W, where W denotes the width of transistor, and Xj is the depth of diffusion region. And there are two parts of this p-n junction. One is located at the bottom side between the source or drain diffusion region and p-type substrate, and the other one is present along the sides of this cube. So accordingly, total junction capacitance is the sum of two parts. One is the capacitance of this bottom plate and the other one is the total capacitance of side walls. Now let us discuss the mathematical expressions for both of them separately. The bottom plate capacitance is formed by the source or drain region with doping concentration Nd and the substrate region with doping concentration Na, which is present underneath it. Mathematically, the bottom plate capacitance is equal to Cj times the area of bottom plate, which is equal to width times length of source or drain diffusion region. Cj is the junction capacitance per unit area, and Cj is an important parameter which is a strong non-linear function of applied bias. What does it mean? Let's suppose if we have an NMOS transistor and we connect its body terminal to the ground and its source terminal is also connected to the ground, and we have a positive constant potential V applied across the drain. So the magnitude of reversed biased voltage between body and drain is equal to V. Now if we go on increasing the value of V toward the positive side, the width of this diffusion region will increase. As a result, the junction capacitance will change. So we see that this junction capacitance is strongly affected by the amount of reversed biased voltage between drain and body, and also between source and body. There are three cases of calculation of this junction capacitance. The first case is called a zero bias condition. It is a situation when all terminals of an NMOS transistor are connected to the ground. In this case, the magnitude of reversed bias voltage between source and body or between drain and body PN junction is equal to 0. So for this case, the total junction capacitance Cj is equal to Cj naught, where Cj naught is the zero bias junction capacitance per unit area. It is a technological constant and specified in datasheets. The second condition is a constant bias condition, in which there is a fixed reversed bias voltage across the source body and drain body junctions. Consider a fixed bias situation for an NMOS transistor where the gate, source and body terminals are connected to the ground and the drain terminal is connected to a fixed positive voltage VT. In this scenario, the amount of reversed bias voltage across the body drain PN junction is equal to negative VD. Why negative? Because body is P type and drain is N type. So if we apply a positive voltage VD across the drain, the reversed bias voltage is equal to negative VD. In this situation, the junction capacitance is equal to Cj naught, where Cj naught is the junction capacitance under zero bias condition, divided by 1 plus V. V is the reversed bias voltage across the junction, divided by phi B and M, where phi B is the built-in potential of body junction and M is the grading coefficient of PN junction. Both of them are fixed technological parameters. So what is the built-in potential of body junction? As we know that whenever we sandwich a P-type material and N-type material together, there is a potential barrier at the interface of their connection, and this potential barrier is due to accumulation of opposite charges on both sides. There is some built-in potential for this potential barrier, and this potential is denoted by phi B. From CMOS point of view, it is a fixed technological constant specified in the datasheet. The third one is the variable bias situation, in which source or drain terminal is connected to a variable voltage source which has voltage swing from V1 to V2. In this case, the whole junction capacitance can be approximated by two values of reversed bias voltages, V high and V low, where V high is equal to V2 minus VB and V low is equal to V1 minus VB, and the value of junction capacitance is equal to Keq Cj naught, where Cj naught is the same zero bias junction capacitance per unit area and Keq is the coefficient which is determined using this equation. Putting the value V high and V low, the grading coefficient and built-in potential, we can obtain Keq, and from this we can obtain the junction capacitance per unit area. The sidewall junction capacitance is formed by the source or drain region and P plus channel stop implant around it. As we know that when we have multiple NMOS transistors on the same substrate, we encapsulate the source and drain diffusion region of each NMOS transistor in a P channel stop implant to avoid the leakage current from one transistor to another. So the sidewall junction capacitance is between the source and drain diffusion region and this channel stop implant around it. The value of total sidewall junction capacitance is equal to the sidewall junction capacitance per unit perimeter, because it is along the sides of the transistor, therefore it involves the junction capacitance per unit perimeter multiplied by the perimeter of PN junction, which is LS plus W. We leave this side because on this side there is no PN junction because the channel is present. So the total perimeter length is 2LS plus W. Like the bottom plate junction capacitance, the sidewall junction capacitance is also a non-linear function of applied bias. So again there are three conditions of biasing. Number one is the zero bias condition, in which the sidewall junction capacitance is equal to CJSW0, which is the zero bias sidewall junction capacitance per unit area. For a fixed bias situation like this, when one of the terminal is connected to a constant bias, the sidewall junction capacitance is approximated by this formula, where phi BSW and MJSW are the built-in potential of sidewall and the grading coefficient of sidewall junction. Similarly, for the third situation, in which one of the terminal is connected to a variable voltage source, again the sidewall junction capacitance is approximated as a product of coefficient K and the zero bias sidewall junction capacitance, where K is obtained using the same formula as we had for the bottom plate capacitance, and the values of high and low reversed bias voltages are calculated also in the same manner. So let us summarize and put together all these quantities that we have discussed so far. The gate to source capacitance is equal to the gate to source channel capacitance plus the gate to source overlap capacitance. Similarly, the gate to drain capacitance is equal to gate to drain channel capacitance plus the gate to drain overlap capacitance. Similarly, the gate to body capacitance is equal to gate to body channel capacitance. CSP is the total diffusion capacitance between source and body PN junction, and this is equal to the diffusion capacitance of bottom plate plus the diffusion capacitance of sidewall. As we assume that the source and drain terminals are identical in their physical parameters, therefore both of these terminals have equal diffusion capacitances. Now let us consider an example with physical parameters of 0.25 micrometer CMOS technology, and the important parameters are listed in this table. TOX is the oxide thickness, COX is the oxide capacitance per unit area, it has unit of femtofarad per micrometer square. CO is equal to COX times the side diffusion length XD. So CO is the overlap capacitance per unit length. LD and LS are the length of drain and source PN junction. CJ0 is the bottom plate junction capacitance per unit area under zero bias condition. MJ is the grading coefficient of bottom plate junction. Phi B is the built-in potential of bottom plate PN junction. CJSW0 is the sidewall junction capacitance per unit perimeter under zero bias condition. MJSW is the grading coefficient of sidewall junction. Phi BSW is the built-in potential of sidewall junction. So all these parameters are given for both NMOS and PMOS transistors in this table, and our task is to determine the zero bias values of all relevant capacitances of NMOS transistor with length equal to 0.24 micrometer and width is equal to 0.36 micrometer. Now how to solve this? As we are given zero bias conditions, therefore the NMOS transistor is in cutoff mode. Now the total gate to source capacitance is equal to gate to source channel capacitance plus gate to source overlap capacitance. And as we discussed earlier, when the transistor is in cutoff mode, there is no channel between source and drain. Therefore, the gate to source channel capacitance is 0, whereas the gate to source overlap capacitance is equal to oxide capacitance multiplied by lateral diffusion length multiplied by the width, and this quantity is equal to the overlap capacitance per unit length. Taking the value of overlap capacitance per unit length for NMOS from here and multiplying it by width of transistor, we obtain the gate to source capacitance. Similarly, the gate to drain capacitance is equal to gate drain channel capacitance and gate drain overlap capacitance. In cutoff mode, this quantity is also 0, and putting the values, we obtain GD equal to 0.115 femtofarad. The gate to body capacitance is equal to the gate body channel capacitance. In cutoff mode, the gate body channel capacitance has a maximum value equal to COXWL, and putting the values from here, we can calculate this. The total gate capacitance is the total gate channel capacitance plus the overlap capacitance of source and drain region, and this can be calculated using this equation. The source body diffusion capacitance is equal to the drain body diffusion capacitance, and this is equal to the capacitance of bottom plate and the capacitance of side wall. As we are given 0 bias condition, therefore the total capacitance of bottom plate is equal to the 0 bias junction capacitance multiplied by the length of source junction multiplied by the width of transistor. Similarly, the total capacitance of side wall is equal to the side wall junction capacitance per unit perimeter under 0 bias condition. This is given in this table, multiplied by the perimeter of transistor. So putting all the parameters from here, we can obtain both source to body and drain to body capacitances. In this second example, we are given the same technological parameter, but our goal is to compute the source and drain diffusion capacitance of NMOS with the same length and width. However, under constant bias condition, when the source is connected to the ground, body is also connected to the ground, whereas the drain is connected to 3 volt and gate is connected to 3 volt supply voltage. So this is a constant bias condition for calculation of diffusion capacitance. For this situation, the total gate to source voltage is equal to 3 volt, the drain to source voltage is 3 volt, and we see that drain to source voltage is greater than overdrive voltage. So for this particular biasing condition, the NMOS transistor is in saturation mode. So the total source to body diffusion capacitance is again calculated using the same formula. Since the source terminal is grounded, so we have a 0 bias situation at the source body PN junction. So the source to body capacitance is equal to, for the bottom plate, it is equal to the 0 bias junction capacitance per unit area multiplied by the area of source junction. Similarly, the side wall capacitance is equal to the 0 bias junction capacitance of side wall multiplied by the perimeter. For source and body PN junction, we have the 0 bias condition. So putting all the values from the table, the source body junction or diffusion capacitance is equal to 0.9 Fermi-farad. For the drain body diffusion capacitance, we have a fixed bias condition, so we need to calculate the amount of reversed bias voltage between the drain and the body. Drain is connected to 3 volt and body is connected to the ground, so the total reversed bias voltage between the drain and body is equal to -3 V. Now putting this value Along with the zero bias body junction capacitance and grading coefficient, we obtain the total junction capacitance of the bottom plate equal to 0.96. So for calculation of sidewall capacitance, the sidewall junction capacitance per unit perimeter can be calculated using this formula, where the same value of reversed bias voltage is placed over here and all other constants are taken from this table. In the same manner, we can also determine all the capacitance in a situation when the source is connected to the ground and drain is switched between 0 volt to 3 volt and the body is connected to the ground. In this case, the high and low value of reversed bias voltage between drain and body terminal are calculated like this. So when we apply 3 volt to the drain terminal, the voltage V1 is equal to Vd minus Vb, which is equal to 3 volt. And similarly for the lower value of voltage swing, that is 0 volt, V2 is equal to 0. Among these two voltage, the high value of reverse bias voltage is equal to minus 3, whereas the low value of reverse bias voltage is equal to 0. And using these two values, we can compute both the side wall junction capacitance and the bottom plate junction capacitance. So this is a kind of task which you can try on your own.